Hey everyone, Coach Jeffrey here, and today we're going to talk about 7 critical questions that you need to arm yourself when heading into networking opportunities, networking environments, the whole networking game. I mean, if you are planning on building your career as a coach or any professional services provider, you're going to have to learn the networking game. And so I've got 7 critical questions that you need to learn, if not master. Practice repeatedly over and over again and make sure you're confident around that you can bring into networking environments. Now, here's the thing right up front, before I get into the 7, I want to let you know that these are reversible questions, right? One of my favorite things is like the reversible jacket. Ooh, I could wear it red. I could wear it blue, right? I get 2 for 1, right? I'm an efficiency guy, right? So same thing with these questions. In other words, what you want to understand is that you're going to be asking these questions when you get into networking environments, but you also going to be ready for people to ask you these questions. So it's like 2 sides of a coin, heads and tails. The question is there, and you want to practice asking the questions in strategic ways and conversational ways and ways that incorporate your own words, your own terminology, your own conversational style. But also, you have to brainstorm, what are my answers to these questions? And then when you know how to ask these questions of others and have answers to them for yourself, now I think you're really going to be a lot more confident when you get into that networking environment. So let's go ahead and break these down. And oh, by the way, I could probably do a separate video on each of these questions, these reversible questions, but let me go ahead and summarize all of them for you right here. First of all, categorically, let's come up with a category or a title or a label. So the title for the first question, for me, I use the word promises, right? Promises. What you might hear is, what problems do you solve? What do you help people with? But the reason I like the word promises is because that's what a brand is. A brand is our promise to the marketplace, and the strength of our brand is how well we back up that promise, or what competitive advantages we have that distinguish us from other people making the same promise. By the way, that's question number 2, is competitive advantages. But let me stick with promises for a second. It's, hey, what promises can you make? What is the greatest thing you do for people? What is the most pain you get people out of? Or what's the most pleasure that you get people into? What are the common problems your clients face? What are the common issues that you help resolve? What are the common challenges you help people overcome, right? But the idea of a promise is that it's got qualities to it. We want to the ASK, right? So A, attention gaining. We will grab somebody's attention if we're speaking into pleasure and pain, right? So think about, what's the most pain your clients are in? What problems, right? What issues, what challenges, pain, right? Or hey, what promised land do you get people to, right? Pleasure and pain are the things that are attention gating. They make us go, what? Really? You could? And so that's the first quality of promise, is attention gating. Second, S, sensational. Very interested in the largest promise I can possibly make, right? And again, this is marketing, and this is self-promotion, and this is building a practice. This isn't legal and compliance, etc. But you have to understand, what's the largest, what's the most sizable. It's embarrassing when I say, hey, what's the promise that you make to the marketplace? Well, I'm really good at customer service. That wasn't attention gaining or sensational, if you understand what I'm getting at. And then finally, keepable. If we're going to be sensational, we got to be keepable. So never overpromise, never outpromise. You like to overpromise. Most people that like to overpromise like to under deliver. We want to get that the other way around. Underpromise, over deliver. But the bottom line qualities of promises are attention gaining, sensational, and keepable. So now you know how to evaluate brand promises that you get other people to share. Like, hey, what's your promise to the marketplace? What's your brand? Or what do you do for people? What problems do you solve? What pleasure do you help people get closer to? What nail do you get people off of? Or what juicy carrot do you help people take bites of, right? So think in terms of pleasure and pain, think in terms of size or magnitude, enormity, but make sure that it's something that you can keep. So that's promises. As I previewed a minute ago, the second category of questions, the second question, reversible, right, is competitive advantages. You hear this said other ways. What's your unique selling proposition? What's your unique value proposition? It's communicating the same concept, right? But I like specifically the term competitive advantages, right? What advantages do I have compared to my competition? So our competitive advantages become all of our answers to 2 questions. Number 1, what do we do better than everybody else that does the same things that we do? And then number two, what do we do that nobody who does what we do does, right? So from examples in my career, I came up with two complimentary sessions when I saw all these other coaches offering a 30-minute or a 45, or some coaches would say, no, I don't offer free coaching. They either pay me or it's no deal, or, oh, the other end of the spectrum, right? How about I just coach you for free until it works and then you'll refer people to me? So I had a distinct competitive advantage. Nobody else, unless they were trained by me and have been through my coaching and leadership training, nobody else was offering two complimentary sessions. So that was a competitive advantage. But also, I'm one of the very few coaches, if any, that I've ever met that have a master's degree in communication. I'm the only coach I know that's taught public speaking for 23 years, right? And helping people get past the fear. So I have to be aware of what I have or what I do that's different or better than everybody else that also does what I do, right? Coaching, speaking, training, delivering soft skills, etc. So again, this is another reversible question. You want to be able to ask people what differentiates them from their competition. And boy, should you be ready when you're asked the same question. Third question that you want to be able to ask people is around tangible benefits. What do people get when they work with you? What material items or tangible possessions or measurable results do people get? So what do people get when they work with you, right? You want to be able to have answers to those questions. You want to be able to ask people what people get when they work with the person you're in front of at the networking event. But I think more importantly, and you got to find the right way to ask this question, but be ready to answer it if asked, is what do people feel? What are the emotional benefits? So this is the fourth question that you want to consider reversible, have answers to, and be ready to ask. What's the greatest testimonial you've ever gotten? If people do a LinkedIn recommendation for you, what are the emotions that they're expressing? How do people feel when they work with you, when they are not working with you anymore? How do they feel before working with you? Terrified, afraid, or excited about something? And then how does it feel working with you? And how does it feel once you've performed for the client or the prospect, et cetera, right? So as a reset, one reversible question is about promises, right? What promises do you make to the marketplace? What pain do you get people out of? What pleasure do you get people into? You want to be able to ask and answer that question. Number two, competitive advantages. What distinguishes you from your competition? Why do people buy from you instead of your competition? You want to be able to ask people that question, and I hope you're ready for with your own answers if people ask you. Then benefits breaks down into the third question, which is tangible, physical, material benefits like time, money, a journal, you get a free book, you get a bag of chips, whatever it is. What do people get when they work with you? But then the fourth question is, how do people feel when they work with you, while working with you, once they've worked with you? What are the emotional solutions that you're providing for people? Okay. Because facts tell, but stories sell. And at the end of the day, most of our decisions are made out of emotion. The more power to us, the more logic that we can introduce. But by and large, we're animals, we're creatures, we're human beings, and we're largely driven by emotion. So make sure that you're ready to speak to the emotional fulfillment that people have when they're working with you, and be ready to be curious about that and see if the people that you're networking with have answers to those questions. 5, evidence. And I say evidence instead of proof, right? But a lot of times when people are networking, they're communicating what they do and why they're good or how they do it. And sometimes people fall into, this is my process, this is my technique, and they're not communicated in terms of competitive advantage. But at some point, I might say, well, how can I learn more? Do you have references, or is there more information on a website, or do you have a white paper, or is there a brochure, a pamphlet? What's more evidence? What's more information I could get that would make what you're telling with me more evident than just you telling me? Do you have a LinkedIn profile? Do you have a website? Do you have a YouTube channel? How about your social media? Are there testimonials? Are there written recommendations? Have you published anything? Where else could I go to learn more about your credibility, right? So you want to be able to, and you got to be careful when you're asking that, because you don't want to suggest that they're not credible. What you're saying, hey, you must have tons of evidence of your work out there in the marketplace. Where would I go to learn more? Or if I found somebody interested in what you're doing, what evidence could I give them to let them know that that's going to be a great introduction or a great referral, etc. So you're asking people almost how to arm you with information that would keep you top of mind, right? Or keep them top of mind with you etc. But also never forget, these are reversible questions. So what's your credibility? What evidence do you have on the ready to send people a download, a membership site, a link, a post, what do you have, right? That keeps you ready to demonstrate your credibility to somebody that becomes interested. Remember, this is a networking environment, right? So you're going to have 1, 2, 5 minutes max with somebody. If you're spending more than 5 minutes with somebody in a networking environment, you're doing it wrong. Because the idea is to network and quickly establish, is there an interest here? Do we want to meet outside of this networking environment? So these questions are getting you closer to the understanding of what this person's doing, what's differentiating them, what they're passionate about, what problems they're solving in the marketplace, and then your wheels will start to spin about whether or not this is a relationship that you want to build further, right? I'm gonna get to that in a second. But same thing, you got to be ready for that as well. You got to be ready to answer these questions for yourself. So the sixth question is around qualifying, prospects, right? So it's I call them pre-qualifying questions, okay? But it sounds a little like this. Hey, what qualifies somebody to work with you? What makes somebody an eligible or ideal prospect for you? What questions does somebody need to answer in order for me to know if they're a good referral or a good prospect for you? How do you know if somebody is either super, potentially, or not at all interested in what you have to offer? What are some things that I would ask people to figure out if I'm confident referring them to you, or if they can benefit from what you're doing? What are the pre-qualifying questions that help you understand, yes, I can work with this person, I could definitely help this person, or no, I understand what this person is going through, but this or that is the right person to help this person? Like, how do you screen and differentiate? What am I going to ask somebody in order to know if they're qualified to work with you, if they're the right person to work with you, etc.? So pre-qualifying questions, again, you want to have answers to that, and you want to be able to ask that for others. And this is a really good one because you're showing like, hey, what's the evidence? Where else would I direct people? What would I ask people? Now you're networking with somebody and they're imagining you as like a connector, a networker professionally. Because remember, it's not net sitting, it's not net eating, it's networking. It takes work to succeed at networking, right? So part of the work is understanding our answers to these questions, practicing the asking of these questions, and then doing the work to be a good networker, which is not a one-way street. We have to make proactive introductions to others, right? Not necessarily so that exact person is the one that reciprocates to us, so that the universe reciprocates with us, right? We want to be, it's got to be a two-way street, networking. That's why these questions are reversible. But here, when we're talking about evidence and credibility and qualifying prospects, we're letting the person that we're networking with know that we're so into this networking game that I want to learn how to refer people to you. I'm not just here with my hand out to get business for myself, but I'm playing a professional networking game, which means I'm aware that this is a two-way street. So I have to be on the balls of my feet, ready to introduce people credibly to others in it if I'm going to be grateful and thankful and deserving of the referrals that are coming my way. And the seventh question that we want to be able to ask is really like a call to action. We want to direct people somewhere. So what observable actions can you suggest to people when networking? What different actions will you take when networking with someone who is either super or potentially or not at all interested in what you will do? So a neat frame on this is like a 1, a 2, or a 3. Like in my opinion, everybody that I talk to is either a 1, a 2, or a 3. Right? When it comes to prospects, they're either a buyer, a potential buyer, or a non-buyer. So I have to have a different call to action when I figure out which one somebody is. If they're a buyer, I got to get them to buy as much as possible ethically. If they're a potential buyer, I just need to get them to say yes to anything. But before I do that, I have to be able to address their concerns, whatever has them hesitant. And if they're a 3, a non-buyer, I need to get out of that conversation and let them out of the conversation as soon as possible. Because if they're not looking for coaching or soft skills or training or speaker for hire or any of the things that I offer, I'm wasting their time because there may be something else that they are looking for. So no hard feelings. Hey, now that I know what you do, you know what I do. It's really great to meet you. This is going to be a great event. I hope you meet all the people that you're looking for tonight, and end that conversation, right? But from a networking perspective, right? They're either a one, a two, or a three. Like this is one, this is definitely somebody I want to network with. This is somebody I might want to network with. This is somebody I know I don't want to network with. Same thing. Well, one, a two, or a three. And we want to have our proper calls to action accordingly. Same thing, though, be on the ready. Because other people are going to say, hey, how about we get together? How about you come to my meeting? Or how about we meet for coffee? Hey, I just want to get to know you. So other people in networking environments, they're going to have their calls to action. They're going to have their suggestions on what they want you to do. And you've got to be heady around that. You've got to be able to pre-screen and pre-qualify that and really make a healthy decision. Does that fit within my framework? Is this person a powerful uh, uh, potential, or does this person have potential to be a powerful networking partner? Is this something that I want to, drive and spend an hour and do the coffee and invest in a relationship with? Or does this person just happen to be here tonight too? Nice to meet you, and let's move on. So if you're not playing your own chess game, you might be a pawn in somebody else's game. So be ready to direct people where you want them to go, and be ready for the directions that people are going to have for you about how to end that networking conversation, whether or not to meet afterwards, and what the purpose of all of that is. So to reset these 7 reversible questions, just to reset them. One, promises, right? You want to be able to ask people about their brand promises to the marketplace and have answers when somebody asks you, what's your promise to the marketplace? 2, you want to be able to ask people about their competitive advantages, and you better have answers if anybody asks you about your competitive advantages. 3, what do people get when they work with you? You want to be able to ask that and have answers if asked that. And then my favorite is emotional, right? I wear kind of my emotions on my sleeve. No surprise that this is my favorite category. But how do people feel when they work with you? And do you know how people feel when they work with you? So be able to ask it and be able to answer it. Next, evidence or credibility. Where would I go? What would I consult? What would I read? What would I click on? What would I watch? What would I listen to? Where would I go in order to get more information that makes what you're telling me now more evident, or puts me in a position to open doors for you, or stay top of mind, or make the introduction? If somebody else was curious about the things that you're telling me, what other evidence could I provide that person in order to pave the way for a healthy introduction? And finally, what qualifies somebody to work with you? How would I know if, right? Because this is true. Some financial advisors, they only work with high net worth individuals. Some financial advisors, they work with young professionals. So it's important to ask a professional, do you have a target market, a target client? Are there some people that are peripherally situated on your target? Are they bullseye? What's an ideal client? And how would I know if somebody's qualified to work with you, eligible to work with you, an ideal prospect for you? What questions would I be asking people in order to know if they're in the pain that you get people out of, or if they're seeking the pleasure that you get people closer to? And then what other demographics or psychographics, right, could I be sniffing for or asking about in order to feel really confident that I'm ready to refer this person to you? And then finally, calls to action. Do we want to set up a meeting? Do we want to disperse? Do we want to, hey, are you going to be hanging out later? I got a couple of people I want to talk to, but I'm going to be around for the whole event if you want to get a drink later on. Or just dismissing and ending the conversation, no hard feelings, but you want to have a plan of action, and you want to be ready for other people's solicitations into their plans of action, right? So again, these are all reversible questions, but if you can spend the time and do the work to practice asking these questions and draft and practice answering these questions, you're just going to have a much better time when you're out there networking. Remember, it isn't net sitting, it isn't net eating, it isn't net fly on a walling. It's networking. And I hope this video has made networking easier for you. All right. If you want to get more information, click below in whatever links we've provided about how to get our one-page blueprint on how to build your coaching practice, or how to get 2 complimentary sessions with an Integrity Game certified coach, or how to join the Arena, which is our membership site where we play the Integrity Game. There's tons of freebies. It's free to join. Of course, there's other things that you can invest in down the road, but we're committed to giving as much free content, demonstrating as much value as we possibly can, and hoping that you'll engage with our ecosystem. We play the Integrity Game, and we hope that you play with us.